Imagine this. A school district builds a beautiful, brand new high school on a historic site in the middle of Central East Austin, a neighborhood that is rapidly gentrifying and getting wealthier by the year. You would expect that school to be thriving. But what if I told you Eastside is instead one of the most socioeconomically isolated and lowest rated schools in the entire district? Why? This is not a story about bad teachers or bad students. It is a story about how a map, our school's attendance boundary, was drawn in a way that appears to bake inequality directly into the system. This is Eastside Early College High School in Austin, Texas. It opened in 2021 after moving from its historic campus in Go Valley at what used to be Johnston High School. It is a state-of-the-art campus built on land with enormous historical meaning for the community. Looking at it, you would assume it is a beacon of opportunity in a flourishing part of the city. But the reality inside the building tells a completely different story. The neighborhood right around our school is almost 50% white and relatively affluent. Less than 18% of residents are economically disadvantaged. But inside Eastside, only about 3% of students are white, while roughly 85% are economically disadvantaged. It is as if the school and its own neighborhood are living in two different worlds. So how can a school sit right here in this neighborhood and still be quarantined from it, demographically and economically? The answer is not in the classrooms. It is in the lines Austin ISD drew on a map. And when you look at the shape of Eastside's attendance boundary, the first thing you notice is that it is anything but natural. To measure this, experts use something called the Posby-Popper score. Think of it as a compactness test for district maps. A score of 1.0 would be a perfect circle. The closer a map gets to 0, the more twisted and unnatural it is. It is one of the standard tools used to flag possible gerrymandering. Eastside's score is 0.16. That is not just the lowest in the district. It is an extreme outlier. Eastside's boundary is almost 3 times less compact than the district average. That is not a quirky shape. It is a massive statistical red flag. And the real question is, what does a boundary like that actually do? It excludes people who live right next to the school. Nearly 1/5 of the population living within just 1 mile of Eastside is zoned to attend a different high school. Expand the circle to 2 miles, and that number more than doubles. More than 36% of the people living closest to Eastside are carved out of its attendance zone. And here is what makes that shocking. Eastside is the only high school in the entire district that excludes anybody living within 1 mile of campus. For every other high school, that number is 0. Think about that. There are streets close enough to see Eastside from a bedroom window, yet the students who live there are told to attend a different campus miles away. Some students who live within 1 mile of Eastside are zoned instead to McCallum High School, about 7 miles away. And these carve-outs are not random. The neighborhoods zoned away from Eastside have higher incomes and a lower share of Hispanic residents than the neighborhoods zoned into Eastside. In plain English, the lines are drawn in a way that walls off wealthier, whiter families from their own neighborhood school. Imagine 2 families living only 1.5 miles apart. One lives in an area with a 32% poverty rate and is zoned to Eastside. The other lives just as close to Eastside, but in a neighborhood with a poverty rate below 10% and a median income $36,000 higher, and is zoned to McCallum, an A-rated high school. Same part of town, same proximity, completely different educational worlds. That does not happen by accident. And this map did not become this way overnight. It is the result of nearly a century of policy decisions, each one layering disadvantage onto Eastside students. The story starts in 1928 with Austin's segregation plan, which officially redlined East Austin. Then in 1971, the district closed the city's original black high school, L.C. Anderson. But instead of creating a truly integrated neighborhood high school, Austin ISD sent many of the central, more desirable neighborhoods to McCallum. That was the first major carve-out. Over the decades, magnet programs and easy transfers pulled even more students away. Then in 2017, voters approved the money for this beautiful new campus, but the district built the building without fixing the broken boundary. And then came another chance. Last October, during the original school consolidation proposal, the district had the opportunity to redraw these lines and give Eastside a fair, natural boundary. They even originally proposed doing that. But once again, they chose not to. Under pressure from wealthier neighborhoods, the district backed away and left Eastside to operate with the highest concentration of economically disadvantaged students in Austin ISD. And the boundary is only part of the problem. Eastside is also held back by a fractured feeder pattern, a student pipeline that is unusually fragmented and about to become even more fragmented. With Martin Middle School closing at the end of the 2025 to 2026 school year, Eastside will receive most of its students from Keeling Middle School, just 1.4 miles away. But Keeling sends students to 5 different high schools. That matters. It affects enrollment, school identity, and vertical alignment long before students ever walk into Eastside's front doors. In fact, Eastside is the only high school in Austin ISD without at least one dedicated middle school that sends the majority of its students to one campus. So Eastside is dealing with a gerrymandered boundary and a fragmented pipeline before the school year even starts. And the barriers do not stop at the property line. They continue inside the building. Eastside does not even have full control over its own campus. Because of confidential historical preservation agreements, essential spaces in the building, spaces funded through a bond sold to voters as a rehabilitation package for Eastside Early College High School, are closed off to Eastside students. The choir room, first floor hallways, a classroom, a community room, and part of the library are reserved for the L.C. Anderson Alumni Association. Those spaces can remain locked and unused during the school day while Eastside students and staff deal with overcrowding. Think about how absurd that is. Classes held in hallways while an empty classroom sits locked. And even the track and field are treated more like public park space than dedicated school facilities. That limits practices, athletics, student life, and basic control over who is on campus. So put it all together. Compare Eastside with McCallum, the school that inherited a large portion of Eastside's natural attendance zone decades ago. Eastside serves an overwhelmingly low-income population, has a gerrymandered boundary, lacks a stable feeder pattern, and does not even control all of its own facilities. McCallum serves a much more affluent population and benefits from a compact, stable map. At that point, the outcomes are not mysterious. They are designed. This is not a campus failure. It is a system design failure. Eastside is not failing. Eastside is being failed. And yet the state of Texas judges Eastside by the same standards as schools built on completely different conditions. So who has the power to fix it? The tools exist. The data exists. The precedent exists. So why hasn't it happened? Was Eastside designed to fail?